The laughter cut through the mess hall like a blade. Hot coffee splattered across her uniform, dripping down her sleeve, pooling on the steel floor. The soldier who'd thrown it, young, smug, and surrounded by friends, burst out laughing. "Guess you won't be needing that badge polished now," he sneered, unaware of the silence that began to ripple across the room. The woman didn't flinch. She simply looked down at the stain spreading over her crisp white jacket, then lifted her gaze to meet his. Her expression was calm. Too calm. And that's what unsettled everyone. "Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I love knowing who is listening." Her name was Admiral Helena Pierce, though no one in that hall knew it yet. Just 24 hours earlier, she had been appointed to command the fleet stationed on this very base, but she hadn't announced her arrival through ceremony or rank display. She had come quietly, unannounced, to see the culture she was about to lead. And now, as the laughter faded and the soldier's grin faltered, she realized she'd seen exactly what she needed to. Helena had spent decades climbing through the ranks of a system that didn't welcome her easily. The first woman in her division, the one who'd been told again and again that she'd make a fine assistant, but never a commander. She had learned long ago that true strength wasn't ET in shouting orders. It was in staying composed when others lost their footing. She took a breath. The smell of burnt coffee and tension hung thick in the air. "What's your name, soldier?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, still smirking, though the confidence in his voice cracked. "Private Lenton, ma'am." "Ma'am," she repeated, wiping her sleeve with a napkin. Interesting choice of words. Lenton's friends shifted uneasily. One of them whispered, "Maybe stop talking." But it was too late. Helena stepped closer. Her tone remained soft, but there was a gravity to it, like calm before a storm. "Private Lenton, would you say you treat all visitors this way, or just the ones you underestimate?" He frowned. It was just a joke." "Good," she said, nodding slowly, "because you're about to find out how funny consequences can be." The mess hall went completely still. Even the hum of the air conditioning seemed to fade into silence. Then a deep voice from the doorway broke through. "Admiral Pierce, we've been expecting you." Every head turned. A captain stood there, eyes wide, posture straight as a rail. He hadn't expected her to walk in early, and certainly not like this. Helena turned toward him, her composure unbroken. "I see your base maintains a lively sense of humor," she said, glancing back at Lenton, whose face had turned pale. The captain's throat tightened. "Admiral, he didn't know." "I'm aware," she interrupted, "and that's the problem." The truth landed heavier than the spilled coffee. Soldiers straightened their backs. Conversations died completely. The very air seemed to wait for what she'd do next. Helena walked toward the front of the room, each step measured and deliberate. "This base has a reputation," she began. "Efficient, skilled. But culture is what defines a command. The way you treat those you think are beneath you reveals more than your medals ever will." Her gaze swept the room, pausing on the youngest recruits, faces half filled with fear, half with awe. Discipline without respect breeds arrogance. Respect without empathy breeds fear. And neither of those win wars. Lenton's head hung low. His hands trembled against his knees. She could see the shame cutting through his bravado now. She could humiliate him further, but she didn't. That was never her way. "Private," she said softly, "you'll report to cleanup duty for the next 30 days. Not because you disrespected me, but because you disrespected this uniform. The one we all wear." He looked up, eyes glassy. "Yes, Admiral. And when you're done," she added, "I expect you to report to my office. You'll be helping me draft a new code of conduct. I believe people can learn. Don't prove me wrong." For a moment he just stared at her, disbelief, gratitude, and guilt warring in his expression. Then he nodded. "Understood, Admiral." When she turned to leave, the soldiers stood instinctively. heels snapping together in unison. The same men who had laughed moments ago now watched her go in stunned silence. Some saluted. Others simply stood taller, as if seeing their service in a new light. Outside, the ocean wind carried the smell of salt and steel from the docks. Helena paused, letting it wash over her. She could still feel the heat of that spilled coffee cooling against her skin, a faint sting that reminded her of every challenge she'd endured to get here. For years, she'd been told to toughen up, to stop taking insults personally, to blend in. But leadership, she'd learned, wasn't about blending. It was about transforming the room you walk into, even if it meant starting with spilled coffee. Later that evening, she sat in her office overlooking the base. The sun dipped low, casting streaks of amber across the sea. On her desk sat 2 cups, one empty, one full. She smiled faintly at the irony. When the door knocked, she didn't need to look up to know who it was. "Come in, Private," she said. Lenton entered, uniform clean, posture rigid. "Reporting as ordered, Admiral." She gestured toward the second cup. "Coffee?" His eyes widened. Thank you, ma'am." "Good," she said quietly. "Now let's start again." He sat down carefully, unsure if this was punishment or forgiveness. But Helena knew it was both, because real change begins where humiliation ends. And as the waves crashed faintly outside, she thought to herself, sometimes it takes being underestimated to remind the world exactly who you are, because true power doesn't need to shout. It stands, calm, even when coffee spills. And as the light faded from the horizon, the base settled into silence, carrying with it a new kind of respect. If this story moved you, share it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to Whispered Words for more cinematic tales of courage, compassion, and quiet strength. Whispered Words. Eu Military Stories. Eu Leadership. Eu Admiral Pierce. Eu Redemption Story.